Hi, I'm Jeska Shum. I'm Chinese American and I am trans female, and I prefer the pronouns her and she. I was born in upstate New York in Binghamton. It was quite the whitewashed town. I went to elementary school in Calvin Coolidge Elementary School, and I faced some bullying growing up as a Chinese American. Eventually, we moved to New York City, and we lived in Staten Island, which is like the dump of the place. But people in the city were a lot more welcoming to ethnic Chinese, and I started to fit in a little bit more. I went to high school in the city, though, Manhattan, in Stuyvesant. I usually took like a 2-hour trip to get to school from Staten Island because I had to take a bus, a ferry, and then another bus, and then walk a bit. So it was quite the trek. I had a lot of free time on those treks, and at some point I thought about my identity, who I am, what I wanted to do, and I knew that at some point I needed to transition. I'd felt this earlier, but because of how broken up my house life was when I was growing up, I didn't really address the issues until high school. During this whole mess, I was dealing with normal high school problems and thinking about college, and I had a whole slew of health problems too. Like, I was suffering from alopecia. I lost all of my hair, including my eyebrows, and I was really stressed in my home life. Eventually, I went to college, and after a year, I figured out that I didn't quite fit in, that I really couldn't handle life living in a male persona that I didn't really believe in. Like a lot of people that are trans, I try to fit in. I learned how to fight. I tried to do super manly things to compensate, and all it did was make it hurt more until I just dropped out and came out here to California, to LA. So when I started out my transition, I kind of sort of knew what I wanted to get out of it. So the first thing most trans people do when they begin their transition is really superficial things. But I knew for myself that I would never be satisfied unless I got what I wanted internally. So I actually used my nursing background to help me in this regard and studied up on hormone therapy. And I think that was the most important step of my process. Learning how it changes you internally and how it extends to your mental well-being and your physical well-being. When I first started taking hormone replacement therapy, I went through a really painful stage. For me, I spent many years actually practicing my voice in secret. So that was really important for me, knowing all those little bits for transitioning, knowing what I was getting myself into, all the ramifications of the drugs I was using. That gave me the goal, the clear idea, and that kept me steady when I started taking all of that. After about 6 to 9 months, I felt like I could pass at that point. So I started up that dream again. It was around this time that I got kicked out of the place where I was living, and I actually became homeless for a good 6 to 8 months. During that time, I was just scrambling to find a job and doing what I could to get by. So around the end of my homelessness period, I met Bambi, and she really urged me to join the Angels of Change because she felt like I could set a good, decent example of what people should do when they're transitioning, standing up for what they believe in and persevering. having a sense of respect for themselves and for others at the same time. Even though I was going through a tough time, I was trying to help out my friends that were also there. In that period, I met a lot of other people like me, a lot of other homeless transgender youth, and I befriended a lot of them. I realized that I came from a pretty good background, and I wasn't quite like how everyone was. I had started my transition pretty late, but I hadn't been kicked out of my house when I was younger, in my teens. So I had come from a background that was slightly more educated. I had gone to college, I had studied, I knew to a certain extent what I was doing. I knew everything I needed to transition at that point. And that made me a little bit different, and Bambi really wanted people to see what you can do when you push yourself to the limit. And I really tried to push at that point in my life. Like, I was really down. The only thing going for me was my transition. I didn't have much money to my name, and knowing where I lived next was a question I had every week at that point. Eventually, I got out of it. I started work at a geriatric clinic, and then from there I made a little bit of a career for myself, and now I'm doing some personal projects. I want to branch out and reconnect with that community that I had left a while back when I had tried to focus on my own personal development. So now I'm really focusing on giving back and being visible. Whereas before I had focused exclusively on passing and working on myself, now I want to show that trans people are just like everyone else. We work hard, we try to fit in, and we do what we can to get by. We're not trying to get special treatment or anything else. We just want to live our lives, to be happy. Like I said before, transitioning was the only thing that made me happy at that point in my life. It made me get by. Whereas before, living in a body that you're uncomfortable with every day felt like torture, like I was in hell. And I don't think anyone should be put through such a punishment in life. When I first left my family, it was a bit difficult. I lost contact with them for 5 years now at this point, and there's been some regret. I haven't seen my little brother grow up. My older brother and younger sister aren't on speaking terms with me. My father refuses to see me as a blood relative anymore. And my mother is just worried at this point. None of my relatives know where I am or what I'm doing, but I've talked to them a few times and told them I'm happy now. And I hope at least that's good enough for them. Losing this family is pretty painful. But every time you shut a door, you open a new one too. So when I came out here, I found a new family. I have a wonderful boyfriend, and I met Bambi and a lot of other LGBT youth here in LA. I feel like I fit in now. I feel like there's nothing to be scared of. My identity isn't this horrible monster that I thought I would be. A lot of those insecurities just melted away as soon as I moved away from my family. So I guess in a way I found a new family. A more loving and understanding family at this point. When I met my boyfriend, we had pretty similar hobbies in that we played Magic the Gathering. I was a beginner and he showed me the ropes for a while. So that really developed into its own thing. Now I'm playing at opens and state championships, trying to make it in the Magic world and become a pro, maybe. I really think that's important, that there's trans representation in sports, whatever that may be. It gives role models to others. Besides Magic, I really like gaming and going out with friends, and I like to exercise as well. Exercising is really important. Makes me physically and mentally feel healthy and whole. But besides that, I'm just your average nerd or geek. I really hope to see in the future more trans representation in media and in sports. I think we really need trans people to be visible to everyone and show them how we're just average people suffering from a medical condition. We're not trying to take something away from everyone else. We're just trying to live our own lives. I think that's really important, and just knowing someone that is trans really affects everything about our perception. I know that when people don't meet us, they tend to have this really biased view of what we are. We're usually depicted very stereotypically, and that's not good when issues are brought up concerning our rights. And I hope that in the future our rights can be respected, and that the visibility of trans people will bring about that change, much as it has done for the LGBT community as a whole. And I hope to be a part of that change as well, and make my own footstep in history.